Inside a real maximum security prison yard, survival isn't about strength. It's about understanding rules no one ever writes down. One wrong look, one wrong step, one borrowed item you can't return, and you could be dead by sundown. These are the unspoken laws that decide who lives and who doesn't. Stick around to the end, and if you're into true fact-based stories from America's toughest prisons, hit that like button and subscribe. You're about to step into a world where respect isn't given, it's earned in blood. The sun rises over the razor wire, glinting off the steel mesh fences that separate one yard from another. At first glance, it looks like any other morning in a California maximum security prison. But to the men stepping onto the concrete, this isn't just yard time. It's survival hour, a fragile piece held together by fear, hierarchy, and unwritten law. Every yard in a maximum security facility like Pelican Bay, Corcoran, or San Quentin has invisible borders. These aren't marked by paint or fences, but by understanding, lines carved deep into memory and muscle. Each racial group controls its own section. The whites claim one corner near the pull-up bars, the blacks occupy the basketball court, the Hispanics from the Serenos and Norteños dominate the bleachers and handball walls, and the others, Asian, Native, Pacific Islander, find their spot where no one else lays claim. No inmate crosses these lines unless invited. It's not about racism, it's about order. Segregation is survival, one former Pelican Bay inmate told the Marshall Project. If you don't follow that structure, you won't make it a week. And here, the prison's official rules are secondary to the inmate code that actually keeps the peace. Correctional officers know it. They watch from the towers, silent. They know that enforcing official integration during yard time could ignite chaos. It's a delicate balance, one that relies on convicts enforcing their own structure. In a world where the smallest disrespect can spark violence, silence and obedience are the only protection. When a new inmate, a fish, arrives, his first yard day is his test. He's watched by everyone. What group will he walk toward? Who will he sit with? Does he know where he belongs? If he walks into the wrong zone, even accidentally, that mistake can mark him forever. Some get a warning, a stare, a quiet threat. Others get stabbed before they ever understand what rule they broke. Inmates learn fast. Don't make eye contact with rival members unless spoken to. Don't sit on someone else's bench. Don't join a workout circle that isn't yours. Even the smallest gestures, like offering a cigarette or shaking hands, have hidden meanings. A handshake might mean peace among civilians, but in here, it's a declaration of alliance. Offer the wrong hand to the wrong man, and you might be seen as betraying your race. Violence doesn't explode without reason, it builds quietly. A sideways look, a late payment on a cigarette, someone cutting across the yard shortcut near the wrong table. These moments are logged by gang shot callers, the prison's unofficial governors, who decide if the slight demands punishment. Inside the yard, there's no democracy, no appeals. Orders flow down from the top, from men who've spent decades inside. If they say someone has to go, it happens fast. A blade passed in the shower, a hit carried out during yard movement, a cleanup before the guards even notice. The balance of power is delicate. Each race enforces discipline within its own ranks, punishing members who bring heat or break peace. It's how the yard stays stable, even without official control. For every riot the public hears about, there are dozens of near riots that never happen, prevented by these invisible rules and the men who live by them. Prison staff call it inmate self-regulation. But for those inside, it's just life. One ex-inmate described it best to the Los Angeles Times. The cops control the gates. We control the ground. And on that ground, the first lesson every man learns is simple. One mistake can get you killed. Every society has laws. In prison, those laws aren't found in a book. They're carved into skin, whispered in showers, and reinforced through pain. To survive in a maximum security yard, you don't just need muscles. You need discipline, awareness, and respect. There's no printed list, but every inmate learns fast that there are 3 golden rules that decide whether you make it home or leave in a body bag. Rule 1, never owe. Debts are the quickest way to die. Cigarettes, coffee, even instant noodles, they're the currency of the yard. But you don't borrow what you can't pay back the same day. There's no credit system here, no, I'll get you tomorrow. If you ask for something and can't return it before count time, your word means nothing. And in a place where your word is the only thing keeping you alive, that's suicide. In 2013 at California State Prison, an inmate named Manuel Trigger Lopez borrowed 2 packs of top ramen from another Hispanic inmate. When he couldn't pay it back, the debt was handed to his shot caller, the gang lieutenant in charge of his racial group. Within hours, a DP, a disciplinary hit, was ordered. Lopez didn't die that day, but he left the yard on a stretcher, ribs broken, jaw shattered. His mistake wasn't the debt. It was the disrespect. Rule 2. Mind your business. The walls have ears, and the wrong question can end you. Inmates don't ask about crimes, charges, or paperwork. The only time that matters is when your paperwork reveals you as a como, a child molester, or a snitch. Those men are marked for death. But even outside those cases, curiosity is poison. A former inmate from Pelican Bay once said, "In the free world, gossip gets you sued. In here it gets you stabbed. When fights break out, you don't look. When someone screams in the shower, you don't ask. When guards rush in with pepper spray, you turn your face away. Silence is safety." Rule 3. Respect the lines. Every group has its area, and every area has its rules. Sitting on another race's bench, using their workout bars, or even stepping across the wrong part of the yard can trigger violence. To outsiders that seems insane, but inside it's the only structure keeping chaos from consuming everything. Correctional officers know this. That's why many of them don't interfere with these invisible borders. As one retired CO from Corcoran State Prison admitted to the Sacramento Bee, "If we tried to mix the races, we'd have riots every week." The inmates police themselves, brutally but effectively. Inmates also learn the silent language of survival, the looks, gestures, and codes that communicate more than words ever could. A nod from a higher-up can mean permission. A stare from across the yard means, "Stay out of this." A man pacing near the fence during yard time might be signaling a hit about to happen. Even the simple act of walking alone is a statement. It means you don't belong to anyone, and that's both brave and dangerous. Gang alliances inside the yard operate like governments. Each group elects leaders, called shot callers, who manage discipline, trade, and conflict resolution. When a dispute happens, say a stolen radio or an unpaid debt between two races, it's not the guards who solve it. It's the shot callers who meet in a corner, under the eyes of the watchtower, to negotiate peace or declare war. Sometimes peace is kept by blood. If a white inmate disrespects a black inmate, the white gang might punish their own member before it escalates. It's justice inmate style, fast, violent, and final. That system of self-governance is what correctional officers call inmate order. It's not perfect, but it works. Without it, every yard day would be a riot. Still, even within this balance, danger is constant. A wrong word, a late payment, a borrowed lighter, anything can ignite war. At Pelican Bay's Bee Yard in 2015, a fistfight between two inmates over a stolen cigarette turned into a full-scale racial riot involving more than 80 men. The trigger was small, a pack of tobacco, but in a world held together by unspoken rules, even the smallest crack can bring the whole system down. Inside the yard, survival isn't about fighting, it's about avoiding the fight. It's about knowing when to speak, when to walk, when to look away, and when to disappear. The men who live longest here are not the strongest or the boldest. They're the ones who understand that in prison respect isn't a choice, it's oxygen. And yet, for all the order and structure these rules create, one thing is always certain: the peace never lasts. All it takes is one broken code, one act of pride, one spark in the wrong place, to turn the yard into a battlefield. It always starts quiet. A gust of wind rolls across the yard. Men lift weights, others walk laps, and a few lean against the fence pretending not to watch anything at all. But every veteran inmate knows the signs: the stillness before the chaos, the shift in body language, the look exchanged between men from rival corners. When a prison yard erupts, it doesn't happen by accident. It's a chain reaction set off by something small but unstoppable. At California's Corcoran State Prison in the late 1990s, a fight between two inmates over a missing pair of sneakers turned into one of the deadliest riots in the state's history. According to the Los Angeles Times investigation, it started with a punch, one man striking another in the face near the basketball court. But within seconds, entire racial groups joined in. The guards on the towers fired warning shots. Tear gas filled the air. But the inmates didn't stop. They weren't fighting for shoes anymore. They were fighting for respect. In prison, fights like this are more than brawls, they're statements. Every race is expected to stand up when one of their own is attacked. Refusing to join can mark you as weak, even as a traitor. So when one man swings, everyone swings. Inside the chaos, rules change. The unspoken order dissolves. Men who spent years following the code suddenly break it, because survival takes a different form in a riot. The objective isn't peace anymore. It's dominance. In one corner, an inmate uses a homemade blade, a shank carved from a melted toothbrush, to defend his race's territory. Another grabs a weight bar. Fists, chains, metal locks, anything becomes a weapon. The guards yell, "Get down," but no one listens. Once it starts, the yard belongs to the inmates, even if only for a few minutes. When correctional officers finally regain control, it's not with words. It's with bullets. Rubber rounds, 37mm launchers, sometimes live ammo if things get too far out of hand. The air fills with pepper spray, the sting burning through eyes and lungs. Inmates hit the ground, face first, hands behind their backs, coughing, bleeding, trembling. The aftermath looks like a battlefield, bodies scattered, blood pooling on the concrete, medical teams rushing in. And yet, in the middle of all that destruction, there's silence again. Because every man there knows, someone crossed a line and this was the result. That same year, at Pelican Bay State Prison, an even more calculated riot broke out between rival Hispanic factions, the Serenos and Norteños. According to court testimony later cited by the Sacramento Bee, the attack was planned weeks in advance. The moment yard gates opened, coordinated groups moved as one, stabbing targets in a synchronized pattern before guards could react. It lasted less than a minute. 4 dead. Dozens injured. Hundreds locked down for months. To the public it looked senseless. To those inside it was a reset, a brutal reminder of the consequences of disrespect. When lockdowns follow riots, everything stops. Showers, phone calls, visits, gone. Inmates are confined 23 hours a day, meals slid through slots. The only communication happens through kites, tiny folded notes passed under doors or hidden inside trash bins during collection. It's through those messages that gang leaders continue running the yard, even while isolated. During lockdown, investigations start. Guards review footage, question witnesses, check for weapons. But the truth rarely surfaces. No one talks and no one snitches. Because in here, even a whisper can cost your life. And while the officers clean up blood and reset the yard, the inmates prepare for the next round, sharpening weapons, marking new lines, and deciding who needs to be handled once the gates open again. Even after months of calm, the tension never fades. A simple look during chow time, a rumor about who spoke to a guard, a missing cigarette from a stash, anything can reignite the flame. A former Folsom inmate once said in a Vice News interview, "A yard riot is like an earthquake. You can't stop it, you can only survive it. But when it's over, everyone knows the ground will crack again someday." Behind the silence of a calm prison yard lies a storm waiting for one mistake, one act of pride, one spark of disrespect. And when that spark ignites, the rules that once kept order are the same ones that turn men into enemies. Because in prison, peace is temporary. Violence is tradition. When the blood dries and the sirens fade, the real work begins, the politics. In the aftermath of a prison riot, everything inside a maximum security facility changes. The yard becomes off-limits. Movement is frozen. Doors stay locked 23 hours a day. The only sound that breaks the silence is the echo of guards walking past the cells and the metallic clang of meal slots opening. But beneath that silence, a hidden system wakes up, a network of messages, negotiations, and leadership decisions that decide whether the next yard day will end in peace or another bloodbath. Inside prisons like Pelican Bay, Corcoran, and Folsom, every racial group operates under a military-style hierarchy. At the top sits the shot caller, the inmate responsible for making decisions for his entire race. Beneath him are the lieutenants and soldiers. Orders don't flow casually, they move through a chain of command that mirrors the structure of organized crime syndicates. Even the guards respect that chain because without it there would be chaos. After a major riot, the shot callers from each race are separated, isolated in the Security Housing Unit, SHU, but communication never truly stops. They send kites, messages written on toilet paper or hidden under food trays, passed from cell to cell through creative means, fishing lines, toilet flush systems, or inside legal mail. Those kites carry one message: are we done? Or do we keep going? If the answer is keep going, then the prison stays on edge for months, a silent war fought through ambushes in the showers, assaults during meal lines, and coded threats spread across the tiers. But if peace is possible, a process begins that inmates call the table. At the table, shot callers negotiate terms of peace through intermediaries. It's not a real table, of course, it's a series of back-and-forth messages that can take weeks or even months to complete. Each side agrees to discipline its own members, to return stolen property, or to redistribute control of certain areas of the yard. The negotiations might seem civilized, but make no mistake, they're backed by fear. If one side breaks the new truce, the other responds immediately. There are no second chances. In 2011, during the infamous Pelican Bay hunger strike, this underground diplomacy reached new levels. For the first time in decades, shot callers from rival racial groups, white, black, Hispanic, and others, formed an unofficial alliance. They united not for violence, but to protest the inhumane conditions of solitary confinement. Hundreds of inmates refused food, not just at Pelican Bay but across the entire California prison system. It was one of the rare moments in prison history when the yard's unwritten rules, segregation, rivalry, and distrust, were temporarily put aside for a single purpose. That moment showed something shocking to the outside world. Beneath the brutality, there's strategy. Inmates who spend decades behind bars aren't just surviving, they're managing a political ecosystem as complex as any government. Correctional officers understand this better than anyone. A former warden at Corcoran once told the Fresno Bee, "If you want to keep the peace, you don't talk to every inmate. You talk to the right five. They'll handle the rest." Those right five are the power brokers. Men who control hundreds of soldiers across multiple yards and even multiple prisons. Some have ties to street gangs that operate outside, meaning their influence extends far beyond the fences. Decisions made inside a SHU cell in Pelican Bay can affect what happens on the streets of Los Angeles or San Diego within days. Still, peace never lasts forever. The same political system that prevents chaos also breeds paranoia. Rumors of betrayal spread like wildfire. A whisper that one race is stockpiling weapons or planning a hit can undo months of fragile negotiation. And when that happens, everything resets. The lines redrawn, the alliances broken, and the countdown to the next explosion begins. Even the guards know it. They call it the cycle. Order. Tension. Violence. Peace. Repeat. The inmates call it something else. Life. One Pelican Bay veteran described it best. Every truce in prison comes with an expiration date. You just don't know when it is. Inside the walls of a maximum security prison, even peace feels like war, just fought with different weapons. Patience, communication, and fear. And in that constant tension, the question every man asks himself is the same. What's the price of staying alive one more day? When the gates finally open after months of lockdown, the world outside the cell door feels alien. The light burns brighter, the air feels different, and every man steps back into the yard with his head on a swivel, because nothing is the same. During lockdown, grudges fester. Rumors twist. Alliances shift. So when the Department of Corrections announces, "Yard is clear," and movement resumes, it's not freedom, it's testing ground. Every inmate knows that the first few days after lockdown are the most dangerous. The yard is quiet. Too quiet. Men walk in small groups, staying close to their race. Each one scans the yard like a soldier on patrol. You can almost feel the weight of invisible lines drawn across the concrete. Boundaries that were redefined while everyone was locked inside. The shot callers have already re-established control. They know who's loyal, who broke the rules, and who might be a problem. Within hours of the first yard release, small meetings happen in corners. Hands clasp. Nods are exchanged. Deals are made. And new rules are set. But beneath the calm, everyone's watching who talks to who. In prison, information is power, and silence is protection. If a man is seen laughing with a rival or walking too close to a guard, that's noted. Everything is noticed. The yard operates like a chessboard and every step matters. The guards patrol from their towers, rifles ready. They can sense the tension too. No one wants another riot. Not the officers, not the administration, not even most inmates. But peace in a place built on violence is always temporary. The trick is learning to live inside the tension. A former inmate named Marcus, who served 15 years between Folsom and Corcoran, once described that feeling. You don't breathe easy on the yard. You breathe in rhythm, short, shallow, like you're waiting for the world to explode. Still, life goes on. The daily schedule resumes. Count time at 6 a.m., breakfast trays through the slot, work assignments, and finally, yard time. Inmates start to rebuild routines. Some return to weight training, others to basketball, chess, or endless laps around the track. But every activity has meaning. Lifting weights isn't just for fitness, it's for survival. A strong body can deter violence. It shows discipline. A man who looks weak becomes an easy target, and weakness has no mercy here. Food trades begin again. Instant noodles, coffee, and mackerel pouches circulate like currency. Cigarettes are split into thirds. Men barter for everything, from soap to letters, from extra milk to tattoo ink made from melted chess pieces. But one mistake, like trying to shortchange another inmate, can spiral into violence all over again. The system is self-enforced. There's no police, no courts, no appeals. If you break a deal, you pay in blood. Even in the calm, the codes remain absolute. Don't stare too long. Don't touch another man's property. Don't talk to the guards unless you have to. And never forget who's watching. For outsiders, it might seem oppressive, a never-ending pressure cooker of fear and aggression. But for those inside, it's structure. It's order. It's the only way to make sense of a world built entirely on survival. Every man finds his rhythm. Some focus on working out, counting reps instead of days. Others write letters, escaping through words. Some turn to religion, joining prayer circles that offer brief moments of peace. And some, the lifers, simply adapt, blending into the background like ghosts who've made the system their home. But even ghosts can be haunted. Because every man who walks the yard knows that peace is just camouflage. Beneath it lies the same instincts that fuel every fight, every riot, every silent stare, the will to dominate or be dominated. At Folsom, one of the oldest prisons in California, a lifer once said it best. Out there, people talk about surviving another year. In here, we talk about surviving another day. Sometimes another hour. That's the truth of the maximum security yard. You learn to walk slow, talk less, and see everything. You learn that respect is more powerful than violence, but it's earned through both. And you learn that in prison, the line between peace and war is just one heartbeat wide. As the sun sets over the yard and the shadows stretch long across the concrete, the men return to their cells. The gates slam shut. The silence returns. Tomorrow the cycle begins again, a fragile dance between order and chaos, honor and fear. Because in here, survival isn't about strength. It's about never forgetting the rules no one dares to write. For a new inmate, the first week on the yard decides everything. No matter who you were outside, soldier, gang member, or average man, once you step into that concrete world, you start at zero. The veterans call it the check. From the moment a fish walks through the gates, eyes follow him. What he wears, how he walks, how he looks at others, it all sends messages. Even hesitation can be dangerous. Confidence, not arrogance, is survival. On his first day, he'll be approached by members of his own race. They'll ask where he's from, what his charges are, and who he knows. It's not small talk. It's verification. If he can't prove himself, or if his paperwork shows something dirty, like informing or crimes against children, he's done before he even unpacks. If he checks out, he's given guidance, who to talk to, where to sit, and what not to do. Every new inmate gets a crash course in unwritten law. Don't walk across the basketball court unless invited. Don't accept food from another race. Don't ask questions about time or crimes. And above all, don't speak when you should listen. Sometimes they test him. A small provocation, someone bumping into him, accidentally. If he apologizes too quickly, he looks weak. If he reacts violently, he looks reckless. The right move is control, stand firm but don't swing first. And here, balance is everything. Some don't pass that test. There are stories, whispered between cells, of newcomers who crossed invisible lines on their first day and paid with blood. A man who sat at the wrong table. Another who borrowed coffee and couldn't return it. Another who ignored advice and spoke to a guard too long. Each one learned the same lesson. Inside a maximum security yard, mistakes aren't forgiven, they're remembered. Those who adapt survive. Those who don't become examples. By the end of his first week, a new inmate knows who he can talk to, who he should avoid, and how to move without drawing eyes. He learns that in here, every rule has a reason, even if it's brutal. And once he learns to follow the code, he becomes part of the rhythm that keeps the yard alive. Because in the end, the only law that truly matters is the one passed down from those who've lived and died by it. In the outside world, law and order are written in books. Inside prison, they're written in blood. Every yard, every cell, every silent glance holds decades of history, a system built not by guards but by the men they cage. And while the world debates justice and reform, behind those walls, a different truth rules. Respect keeps peace. Disrespect brings war. If you've made it this far, you've just walked through the heartbeat of a place most people never see, where silence speaks louder than words, and survival means understanding the rules no one dares to write. If you want more true fact-based stories from America's most dangerous prisons, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this documentary with someone who thinks they know what tough really means. Because out here, freedom is a choice. In there, it's a privilege no one ever forgets.